Welcome to another unit in this SPSS course. In this unit, I'm going to talk about mediator effects. Mediator effects, that's what we can see here, where I have a third variable which impacts the direct effect my independent variable has on my dependent variable. We're going to consider this in the context of regression analysis. So here usually I assume the independent influences the dependent, and the mediator interferes in this. That's the way we usually find this in some kind of models. However, what happens here from our mathematical point of view is I have this direct effect from x on y, and I have an indirect effect where x first influences the mediator and then the mediator influences y. So first, this way, how x impacts y, and then via this roundabout way. Well, first question, how can I find out that I have a problem like this, or a similar problem at least? Well, I could take all three variables, just calculate correlations, and I'll see that those two correlate highly, then this might actually be a problem, or rather, they correlate and they correlate. This could be a mediator. However, this could also be a moderator. Same thing applies if I actually run my linear regression, but I use as independents the x and the mediator. And then I just check for multicollinearity. If there's multicollinearity, this is also a good indicator that there's a relation between those two variables. So, if I have a good idea that there is a mediating effect, usually that it's a mediating and not a moderating effect, comes from the theoretical background of the model I built here. Well, if I'm pretty sure that I have an effect like this, what I can do is simply include this effect in my model. What would I do here? Well, first off, I need to get rid of the effect the mediator has. So I run a model with these two independent variables, but I only consider this part. So this is then the direct effect. And then I'm simply considering the effect here and the effect here. And I multiply them, and I will get the indirect effect. So this works nicely, because here I also can use my t-test. I could use a t-test here and a t-test here. But what I'm actually interested in is the complete indirect effect. So both of them together. That's actually a problem, because here I multiply two of those effects. This means it's no longer normally or t-distributed. So I cannot use any kind of t-test here. However, there is a really nice procedure which we can use, which works around this problem. So I have this here already installed. So if you install this, you can find this at regression. Then in the lower part, that's the procedure process by Mr. Hayes. And here you see the internet address where you can get this for free. So it's a pretty neat tool to work with mediators in particular. But, well, you can do way more, but in particular in this context, it's a pretty neat tool. So you can just download this, double click, and then he will automatically add this to SPSS. If you click here, the first part, I already prepared this here, contains the dependent variable. So here I'm using closing size. And my independent. So I try to estimate closing size by the height of a person. But I also assume a mediating effect of weight, which also makes sense, because height will also impact weight, and weight in turn will also impact clothing size. So this would be my model, my x, height, my mediator weight, my Y clothing size. And now we can also see here on the left part where it's called bootstrapping for indirect effects. I said for the indirect effect we cannot use a t-test. So what we do here is instead use bootstrapping. I won't go into detail what this is. We use bootstrapping to estimate a confidence interval for our parameter. So basically we just draw a random sample from all of these, and by this get a good estimate of the distribution of the parameter. And in this context we can generate a confidence interval. So basically we use this method, generate here a confidence interval of 95%, which we could also change if we want, 95%. Then we can check whether our parameter lies within this, whether the 0 lies within this confidence interval or not. We'll see this in a moment, because then I can simply click OK. It will take a moment to actually calculate this, to solve this. Then I get 3 parts in my output. Well, actually 4, but this is just some background information, which what is X, what is Y, what is M. The first part, that's this part here. So the first part actually estimates here this effect X has on the mediator. So here we see our X variable, so the height, has a significant impact on the weight. So this is a good indicator that there will be a mediating effect. Then the second step, this part here, calculates first off the direct effects of the mediator and of the X variable. So this here, the second line, actually is the direct effect that X has. This here is the direct effect that the moderator has. So if I multiply the 0.9431 and the 0.0606, I will get my indirect effect. As I said, the problem is for this indirect effect, I no longer can use a t-test. Here I see, well, my X influences my moderator significantly. My moderator influences my dependent significantly. So there should be, and this would be a good idea, to assume a significant indirect effect. That's actually done down here. Well, the first off, that's just a repetition of what we saw here. That's just my direct effect. So it's the same as here. Then the really interesting part, that's actually the last part here. That's my indirect effect. That's the effect I get if I multiply here 0.9431 with 0.0606. That's here the indirect effect. And then here I get my confidence interval. As I see, the 0 is not contained within this confidence interval. So this means that my indirect effect is significantly different from 0. So in other words, I have a significant indirect effect. Or in other words, still, my weight acts as a mediating variable. So that's the first thing I can see from this. The second thing, well, this is significantly different from 0. And in particular, this is positive. So this tells me in which way my mediator impacts the relation from X on Y. And we can see this. For this, I will just use a different reference. I will just go to linear regression. Just simply estimate clothing size by height. So with no mediator at all. So here I see the coefficient would be 0.1 something. Here I see the direct effect is only 0.05. So this is actually smaller than what I had before. So if I include my mediator, this will reduce the effect of x and y. This can be seen here from the positive sign. If it were the other way around, so if the direct effect by inclusion of the mediator would increase, then this would be negative. And well, that's then everything there is on this part on working with mediator variables. So I hope you enjoyed listening to it. And if you want to see additional parts on SPSS, feel free to visit the rest of this course or have a look at the corresponding playlist. I say goodbye and see you next time.